be too unselfish is wrong. It might be that God wants to teach somebody else how to give, and He's led them to give, and they say, God, led me to give this to you, or I want to do this for you. For us to say nope is to maybe not let them learn the lesson that God has for them. And so, I think that we ought to consider those kind of things, right? Excuse me. And so now I know that there's times that you don't need something. You don't need what someone's trying to give, and you're wanting to be nice and say, no, no, you need that for yourself and all of that. But, uh, you know, we need to consider that God might be trying to teach them something, or if God led them to do it, then we may need to accept it. All right. And so learn to use some good judgment. Learn to say, maybe I need to accept this. Sometimes you need to say, I'm not going to be selfish. I don't want to be greedy. Sometimes you need to say, I need to accept that. Maybe they need me to accept that. It'd probably be a blessing to me, and it might be a blessing to them as well. And so learn to use good judgment. It's certainly better though to fight over who uh, uh, gets to pay rather than who has to pay. Did you get the way I said that? It ought to be when you go to a restaurant or you go out to eat or something, and it ought to be that you ain't going, let's check to them. It ought not be that way. It ought to be, let me get that, and so we ought to be fighting over, I want to pay for it. I'm going to take care of this. And, but sometimes you gotta let the other person. Sometimes you go halfers. Sometimes neither one of you can afford to pay all of it. So there's nothing wrong with that. And so, but sometimes it's okay to let the other one pay for it. I want to be a blessing to you. I want to take you out to eat, or whatever, and whatever it is, and to let them do that. All right. Sometimes it's best to just accept somebody's hospitality and say thank you. Have you ever thought of that? Just say thank you for it. I've learned, even in the ministry, you get up to preach, and a lot of times people come up after me and say, "Oh, that was such a great message," and I need to not go into 1,000 things. I need to just say thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. And so, um, so that's what we ought to do. Now that brings up another issue of not being grateful enough, or not being saying thank you enough. We need to learn to say thanks. God sometimes has to take things away or let you live a long time without something so that you can really learn to appreciate it. Sometimes you say, why can't I have this? I've been praying for it. I didn't need it. I've been struggling for all this time. God, why won't you answer this? God may be saying, if I answered it right now, in a week, you wouldn't even appreciate it. But give it another year, give it a few years, and you're liable to say, I'm so thankful. I mean, you got out of the hospital thankful for it, ain't you? If you'd been in there for 30 minutes and got out, might not have thought that much of it, but after being in there that long, you say, I'm so thankful that I get to be home and all that. And so, so think about that. Now, those were just some things that I had thought. But let's look into the message today, on some of the principles of it. Remember, the first principle we showed you was that God showed us how to give by example. First, by example first. He gave first, he gave his best, and he gave the most. He didn't just tell us to give, he did it all first, and he said, this is the way I want you to do it. And then the second thing was this, that it involves three people. When you give or receive, it involves God, it involves other people, and it involves yourself. Okay. Now the third thing is this. We'll get into this as far as we can today. Third principle is this: you get back what you give. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 7, it says, whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. You will reap what you sow, right? You'll get some things and you'll give some things too. But what we give makes all the difference in the world. You say, some people don't give anything. That's not true. Some people give bad things or wrong things. And that's what they get back in return. Because what you give is what you're going to get back. Okay, sooner or later. It might not be right away, but sooner or later. Remember old Scrooge? Remember old Ebenezer? If you've seen or read that, yeah. I mean, it's a great example of greed and selfishness and meanness and all that. And he gave greed and meanness. And what did he get in return? He got a bitter, lonely soul where nobody liked him, nobody wanted to be around him. And that's what we got. Verse 8 says, let me look at that. It says, for he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. Okay? It's a promise. God promises if you sow fleshly things, wrongful things, sinful things, wicked things, mean things, if you sow those things, if you give that stuff out, that's what you're going to do. Right? And he promises that he's going to do that. And so you say, well, I don't give anything. Yeah, you do. Given meanness or anger or whatever. And in other words, what you give is what you get. And we're that way. We can tend to be that way. We live in this flesh too. We're good at being selfish. When you pray, do you spend more time asking God what he can give you or what you can give him? We can be selfish. God, give me this and take care of this and do this, and we go through our list of 100 things that we want or whatever. We're like children writing to Santa Claus, And here's my list of 1,000 things that I want, And but how much of it do we say, God, what can I give? What do you want me to give? Do you ever pray, God, what do you want me to give? See, that is a good principle. It's a good thing. I don't and Marcy was saying the same thing a while ago. I don't give a whole lot of material gifts at Christmas time. I never have. And I determined that I'm not getting caught up in the materialistic, you know, world of having to do certain things and meet certain guidelines and requirements and all of that. And uh, and and I probably should do more. I probably should get more for Christmas. But a lot of times I don't give hardly anything in particular because to me, if if I know something that you want or need, and I realize that, I'll probably get it for you. But if I don't, I'm not going to go buy some random gift that you probably ain't going to want. You're going to say, "Oh, thank you so much," and then you're going to go, you know, give it to somebody else or go get rid of it and waste a lot of money and doesn't do anybody any good. And so, uh, and as far as I know, I'm not hated for not doing a lot of that stuff. And let me say, I always appreciate anything that you all or anybody gives. God really, really takes care of us. Um, but like Marcy said, I try to give real and good gifts that God has given. Love is a good gift, you know, and kindness, all of that, and uh, those everyday things that really help and bless people. There's so many things you can do or give that doesn't involve, anything to do with money or material things. Um, uh, and that's what we ought to do. God gave me a heart for lost people. So he gave me a heart for hurting people. Years ago, I surrendered in the ministry and I asked God to send me to some people that really have need and that I can help them to find and know Jesus. And even troubled and messed up and angry people or troubled people, you know, they need love too. They need to be blessed as well. And often some of these folks don't get it. There are people in the world that don't ever get any love whatsoever. And And so think about that. They need it too. You say, yeah, but they're mean or hateful. Yeah, but they're reaping what they sow. They're getting back what they're giving out. They're giving out meanness and they're getting it back. Yeah, but maybe they may be there. They may be that way. They may be mean and hateful because they never got any love. They never got any kindness. It may be that they're there doing these things and that they've nobody's ever been nice to them. There's a lot of people out there, I believe, that are unkind and ungrateful and selfish and wicked and rotten, but it's because in their life everything's been against them. They've learned to be that way. It may be that somebody just needs to show them some love, even though they don't deserve it, even though they haven't earned it, even though they don't merit it. But that they could use some kindness. You never know when God may break somebody's heart and soften it up and get them ready to receive Him and save their soul because of some act of kindness we do to their act of meanness, or to what we seem to think that they're just a angry person, or they're whatever. And so and so why can't we be the ones to give? To give love and to love them when they don't deserve it, when they're unlovely. See, we're called to do the unthinkable. We're called to do the impossible. Jesus gave nothing but love and goodness, and He got nothing in return, almost nothing in return, but wickedness. And yet He hung up on that cross after they put Him on there. And by the way, we put Him on there with our sins. And He hung up there and said, Father, forgive me. I did all of this for them. The meaner they were, the nicer I was, the better I was. The more they did wrong, the more I needed to do this to pay for their sins, so that I could save them. And that's what He wants to do. And He taught us by example. I talked about that before. And we ought to do the same thing. We ought to say, I want to live the impossible life. I want to give what I can give. I want to give Jesus. I want to give the love and the kindness and the goodness and the gentleness and all of that. And not just to the people